So thank you, Mike, for carrying us up on the wings of love today. And there is true love here. And as I was picking apples in my backyard, I don't even know what kind they are, but they're scrumptious. I don't think they're delicious, but they're scrumptious. And we have a garden corner, and so it's so much a plethora of this cornucopia of good, which I want you to notice Diana Bella's display of the cornucopia of good. But it just can't help but overflow. And so living in that overflow, I invite us all to share in the apples. And it's usually in the social hall, but it just has spilled over into the sanctuary this morning. And when I ask myself, what do I have to give, much like Johnny Appleseed might be, or much like the hummingbirds that make that 6,000-mile journey every year, or Johnny Appleseed sprinkling those seeds, not even knowing sometimes what those seeds may come to fruition, but to know that those branches help give shelter. They help give shelter to the cranes. And on your seat, thanks to one of our outreach practitioners, Suzanne Squires, part of her spiritual practice was to share cranes. And she made these origami cranes and sent them from Delaware. So they've flown all the way from Delaware. And it's very auspicious. It means that we're connected to the origin of our being. We're connected, and we can fly in that true love, and we can have that stability as we're flying and soaring and having the awakening that happens. And Dr. Ernest Holmes also invites us to fully participate as we radiate, whether it shows up in apples, whether it shows up in the faith of fullness of flying like those cranes do. And I know that crane season is coming up as well, or that we have that upliftment and that inspiring place that the balloon season has already brought us. And I'm having a season. I'm not just having a couple weekends. We're having a whole season. And it was great to hear all of the enthusiasm of folks this morning and to know that energy is carried over into our relationships. That energy is carried over into our workplace. That energy is carried over into our livelihood and of that being alive. And so Dr. Ernest Holmes talks about in living the science of mind, which the science of mind is a philosophy for spiritual living. It's a guide that was developed, and it's a philosophy, it's a way of life, it's just a place where we can be who we truly are. He talks about how we radiate and how we are vibrating at a higher level, a different higher octave that may be happening for us. And so he invites us to be like a sponge. And I'm not much of a domestic goddess, but I know that when I do use a sponge, whatever I'm absorbing, then I'm able to have all that stuff and then, squeeze out that part that's not necessary, non-essential, but I'm able to absorb and to, in essence, clean that area of my life up by using this law of what he would call law of radiating. So he talks about in Living the Science of Mind that the absorbing power of a substance is equal to the emitting power. And throughout the day, I get to notice what I am emitting or what I'm emanating. And it could be I'm emanating the joy of the balloons, the joy of in anticipation of crane season, moving from balloon season to crane season, or to notice the harvest and how it just shows up. And last week, I asked us to be a go-giver rather than a go-getter. We get to be a go-giver. And in essence, we're almost done with this next quote. You got your seatbelt fastened? You ready? The next quote is by, and I see this as mystical consciousness. There's this consciousness, this Christ consciousness, the mystic, or being at one and knowing that there is no separation in our lives, but there's oneness and wholeness. And there's the mysticism of this Christ consciousness. And to see these teachings as a way of living. And so being a way shower, being a master teacher, and to know that we all are those master teachers, and to know that we can recalibrate and synthesize, whether it's from martial arts like Irwin, those teachings of the crane and having the balance as we stand on one leg. And a friend of mine, just a little sideline, we'll get back to the being done with this talk already, but a friend of mine does flamenco dancing, and so that's when they stand on one leg, flamenco. Just kidding. I'm just but there is I notice in my yoga practice that as I have that balance, then it can't help but pervade other areas of my life. So give, and it shall be given unto you. As I'm giving, I'm receiving, and it's Course in Miracles that says to give is to receive. And so that as I notice what true love I'm giving in my life, what quality time I'm spending with myself, oh, that compassion for myself, oh man, that empathy with myself, that being in whatever, no matter what's going on, to have that full spectrum of living. And so last week I gave us the invitation to have an area where we can be a go-giver and to not withhold anything. So to be a go-giver rather than just a go-getter. And I have to ask myself, well, what do I have to give? Well, we can embrace true love. And some of us were already embracing and embodying that true love as we were greeting people together. We can also sow seeds of greatness, so that as we realize there's more greatness in our life, that's what our attention is on. And then we can also fly in faith, like the balloons, like the cranes, like our life. We can fly in faith and to be in that true love more moments than not, from moment to moment. So much like these cranes where we fly in faith and we have that remembrance, that reminder that we take with us today, we know that we are connected already and that we are provided and lifted up on those two wings of love, and that we can have, much like the cranes represent, longevity and success and that which is very auspicious and good, and that internal longing or that depth of that spirituality, that depth, and to take that depth from being on the ground and to be lifted up and rising upon whatever that powerful experience is. That we're being asked to look inward, and the cranes are also a representation of to look inward. And then to fly and have that outward place where we show the fairness in our life, where we respect our compassionate nature, where we have the wisdom that shows up in appropriate ways. So that's our invitation. We get to have it show up. And so what do I have to give? If I ask that question of myself, what do I have to give? And there's a parable of the mustard seed that says, when will we live in this kingdom of spirit? When will we go from small beginnings to larger growth in our lives? Whatever that smallness may be in our life, we get to plant that seed. It may be a little tiny seed that's in our heart. That when we plant it, we don't just hold it in our hands, or we don't just let the apples drop to the floor, but we intentionally know that they are going to grow into something magnificent, that they grow from small beginnings into something that's larger. So as far as having that faith to fly in faith, it's like a grain of mustard seed, which when it is sown in the earth, and this is in Mark, the chapter of Mark, as far as what that intent we can set for our lives. It's like a grain of mustard seed, which when it is sown in the earth, sowing seeds of greatness. Though it is less than all the seeds that are on earth, it is so tiny. It's very, very tiny in the start. And it could be that we have those steps that are very, very tiny, or we want to eliminate that something that seems so large in our life that we want to have that become invisible, and then we have something that's small that then becomes visible. Though it is less than all the seeds on the earth, when it is sown, grows up, becomes greater than all the other herbs, and puts out great branches so that the birds of the sky can lodge under its shadow. And there was such an awesome I had this total experience of oneness, and if you can put an experience of oneness on your Facebook, I did. And it's out there on my personal Facebook, of these cranes that were flying with the balloons in that same airspace. And they were really saying something. And I saw them as flying at one and having that synergy. And these cranes came around these balloons and were right there, like as an integral part of, hey, we're in concert. We're in concert. And they were having a concert. Oh my gosh. I'm getting goosebumps right now. I was so inspired by that we have that nature, and then we have that coming into landing. And I watched some of the balloons land and how there were loving hands to receive that, how there's the loving soil to receive the bountiful harvest, the bountiful blessings that are available in the apple seed too. And as we look at how we can plant those seeds and sow seeds of greatness, there may be some unexpected things we had not anticipated. I used to flip houses and work with some contractors and general contractors and things. And it was an experience because you probably don't think of me as having a tool belt aside from these spiritual tools. So we've got, belt and suspenders and all those other sorts of things with some tools. And there's a story, fortunately he wasn't one of our contractor folk, but there's a story about this general contractor had talked with this carpenter. And the carpenter had already talked to his family, and he was pretty much, a long, long time, he'd been a carpenter, he'd built so many houses, and he said, pretty much I'm done. I've done this, I've had a really fulfilling life, a really dedicated and successful career, and I've made people really happy as they've stepped into their homes. They've had their feet up with the fireplaces, and they've heard it crackling, and they could read beside all these beautiful fireplaces that he would do the woodwork around, and all the interior it's almost as beautiful as our altar here with the woods that Don Wismer has, oh my gosh, just the beautiful wood. So, thank you, Don. So imagine a carpenter, not even as skilled as Don, but someone who provided quality craftsmanship. And so the general contractor invited him, I want you to build one more house, just one more before you retire. And this carpenter had visions of just spending quality time with his family and his grandkids, and he really decided not to give it his all-out effort for this one last house. And it was kind of sloppy, and he used some really inferior materials, and he really skimped, and he didn't really keep track of things, and he would just show up and was really lackadaisical about it, although he was given this opportunity to build this house. And when he was done with the house, the general contractor handed him the keys. And he said, this is your retirement present. This is for you. And had he thought about it a second time, on 20/20 hindsight, had he thought about it, he might have given it his all. He might have had that to give is to receive type of attitude, that what do I have to give? Well, he gave whatever that level was, and so that was his level of experience with his second, his retirement home, his second home. So anything is possible in this realm of living in the flow. And I had one of the most wonderful experiences as far as melting in true love. I had the opportunity to meet Amma, who is India's giving saint. And what she does is she travels around the globe. I hope that she comes to Albuquerque. If not, we may have a field trip to just melt in her hugs. And what it is it just is this heaven that pours itself out, and to trust in the fullness of heart. And she says that she has discovered the secret of the universe. And it is that secret, she is that portal, that it is about true love. And they say, well, how do you hug so many millions, not just thousands? How do you hug so many millions of people? And she just gives through her warm embrace. She says, where there is true love, anything is effortless. It's effortless for Suzanne to send us the cranes because it was her joy and her passion. It was effortless to get on a step stool and pick these beautiful apples. It was effortless to hug people this morning. And are you ready? Would you like to experience that true love? If you haven't hugged, I invite you to hug 3 people right now. If there's someone who you have not hugged, and we'll just take a moment to be in that embrace of true love. Why not? Hello, sweetie. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we absolutely trust in our heart what that embrace of true love means. We absolutely trust in our heart that there is that giving essence, that nature, and it is a natural thing that it's just a very natural thing. And if things don't feel natural, then we can take a second glance at that. And I had a conversation, and I know more than one of you did hug more than 3 people, and to be continued. I had a conversation with one of our volunteers, and she doesn't even live here, and she doesn't even hang her practitioner's license here, but she's so inspired and motivated, and I was talking and comparing notes with her, and she's so jazzed about putting Ernest Holmes quotes with these beautiful graphics up on our website. Her name is Melinda Much, and we were talking, and we had like this long, brainstorming kind of good juju flowing, and just giving forth of those insights and ideas, and where do we want to go from here type of conversations. And it wasn't much later that I got an email from her that said, "I heard what you said." And sometimes we get to look at where, if we give that understanding, or if I listen more than I talk, or whatever it was. We had amongst that conversation some things that were about, the relationship of that true love that's possible and that we all deserve. And there's also that goal that we were having several activities as far as those goals. And so it was so sweet to just get like this one-liner email is, I heard what you said, let's set this up and do it, and out of her own passion. And so I was just so inspired to say, she said, I heard. And so oftentimes we can give someone the gift of listening, or the people who are taking our classes and our educational programs who call and say, whoa, this stuff is working. It really works. Oh, wow, it is working. And sometimes we can take a look at our mode of operating, and I know that in our culture we have technology which serves us or may not be serving us. And in watching Conan O'Brien talk with a comedian, Louis C.K., anyone seen him? He was saying that, really nobody's happy, and I want my daughters to grow up without mobile phones because it's a distraction. And he says, I'm not going to buy one for my kids. They're not ready yet. I'm raising the daughters that I want to be growing up into grown-ups and to have that full spectrum of living, whether I might be experiencing sadness. There may be something that happens in my life, or I may be experiencing some woundedness from the past. But I'm not raising my kids, he says. I'm not raising them because we don't know how to be in relationship anymore. I want my kids to know how to be in relationship and to not be distracted and just pick up that mobile device anytime that they, if you text 100 times a day, rather than just sitting with whatever that is. And so we don't know how to just sit anymore. And to have those seeds that we're sowing for our greatness come to fruition. To just sit with whatever that was. And when we get uncomfortable, we may reach out for something that's a distraction. We may reach out to 50 friends and say, do a blast. Or we may hang out on Facebook. Or we may hang out on an old James Taylor song. And it would be good if we hung out on a James Taylor song that says, you've got a friend. And that friend may be myself, first and foremost. Or we could hang out on that, like a Bruce Springsteen, as Louis C.K. talks about. Bruce Springsteen, he was recalling when he was really sad one time. And he kind of yodels. It's kind of, Oktoberfest, it's kind of that season of yodeling anyway. But it was like this yodel of being sad, and he just wanted to stop in that Bruce Springsteen moment and be sad. And so he pulled his car over. And I've done this too when I helped flip some houses, and one of the general contractors had spent some of our draws of funds on his child support, which was not okay. It was not okay. And I can remember just being in a Home Depot parking lot and just bawling, and I just had to be sad, like, what is out of control? What is going on here? And so to rein that back in just by noticing, and to come back into that space where I could be satisfied, to let that sadness pass through, that sadness of experience that this guy had made this choice. He made a choice, and it wasn't beneficial for him, and it wasn't beneficial for us. And then there were a whole bunch of other, there were 8 homeowners that were involved. So what that got turned around was we planted new seeds. We got to notice what was there and begin to sow new seeds of greatness, and to say, wow, we're going to advocate for something new, because this is not okay. We're going to advocate for that. And we actually made a difference on the state level with that one, which I would not like to be the poster child for something to go so wrong that we would be making a difference and being in a video for the Attorney General at another state. We have a YouTube channel which is much different now, but we bring that experience that, yeah, we can make another decision, and to notice when things like that happen. So it's okay to have those moments, whether it's in a Home Depot parking lot, and to yodel, or to say that you've got a friend like James Taylor. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my friend Melinda, who said, hey, I heard what you said. And I'm grateful for that place of that deep spirituality to fully participate. I think had we not participated full out in the hugs that we just did, had we not participated full out on being a go-giver, and to know that we can embrace that true place. Oh, cool. We can embrace that true place of true love and embody and accept all the goodness that is there, and to move forward in flying in faith, and fly in faith of that place that is the place of what's happening now. So we are the place of what's happening now. Are you ready for the place of what's happening now? Yeah. You ready? And we take this into our individual lives. This spring, when we explored together at Appreciative Inquiry workshop that we had, it was Discover and Dream and Design. We got to explore, and these are the items that we came up with individually and with us as a community. And we'll explore this again next Sunday with thanks to Lou Similori, and thanks to all the everyone who's here, really. So we're calling it a leadership gathering, and it has ice cream, which is delicious, almost as scrumptious as these apples. But we invited that what we're up to is being about love and spiritual support. We're expanding our spiritual development of our youth. We're all being youthful, and we're growing together. We're growing together, and then we're giving, and then we also have inspiration. So that's what we're about, and we may renew and refresh our faith, our flying in faith, and take that home, take that to heart. Because sometimes I know I need to listen to something in a new way. And I need to listen more than I talk sometimes. And I also need to take that to heart, that I can, again, fly in faith like those cranes. And that I can grow, and I know that I have that faith that's in that little mustard seed, that yes, it does give that shade and shelter. Or it could be like these fresh picked apples to enjoy. So to pick up that place in our lives, and to be in that freshness and newness. We're also doing that with the warm clothes that we're sharing, too, and that's happening this month as well. So to come from that beautiful place in our heart where we have a friend, where we are a friend. And I remember reading a book years ago. It said, How to Be Your Own Best Friend. How do I be my own best friend? And what do I have to give? So if those are the two questions that we take with us, how am I my own best friend? And what do I have to give? To know from that launching point, I can fly forward in faith and move forward and have that warm embrace of true love. So I invite us to have that warm embrace of true love and that giving nature and that essential nature, and invite us to turn within for this moment of inner celebration. And being in the heart of hearts of love, and knowing that there is that faithfulness, that fullness of that which is so beautiful and true and loving and kind, that there is compassion here. There is the infinite way of pure possibility and potentiality which is flowing in this rhythm, in this balance. Much like the cranes and much like the blue sky is filled with infinite possibility. And even as we gaze at the stars at night, we know that they sparkle and shine, and that we can bring that same energy and be that same energy that is in our hearts. All of those powers in the universal energy life force, that creative life force which is in the stars, which is flying with the cranes, which is flying in flight already in faith. Faithfulness in the givingness, and knowing that it truly is already given. But there is the abundant flow, there is that affluence and that opulence which flows in the everglow of life. And being in this place of grace and ease and pure possibility, I'm so very grateful, knowing that there is that place of friendship, and that as we give, we are receiving in full measure, in that fullness, in the peacefulness, in the heart of hearts of love. It is divine, it is natural, it is this life. And I'm grateful as I release this word into the loving action of the law, knowing that it is kind, it is compassionate, and it is the true love, the true nature, in this warm embrace. And so be it, and so it is. And please join in a few moments of stillness